So, is Armored Core 6 dead? Let's talk about it. Greetings, Ravens. Cleric here. I want to talk about something that's been coming up a lot in my comment section lately in my videos. I'm not going to be blurring out the identifying information of the comments, but here are some of the comments. This game is dead. Why bother? PvP is dead. It is nothing but the same thing everywhere. The game is so dead. The game needs a DLC. It's dead without it. From needs to do something. No one wants to play a dead game. And honestly, I could show you more, but I really don't feel like, screenshotting and blurring out more of these things. There are more of them, but I didn't want to go through that level of effort. I did want to show you a few, though. Before I continue going into my description of what I'm going for this video is, if you could do me a favor, please like the video, please do subscribe if you don't mind. It really does help me out, and it's completely free. And if you really like what I do enough to become a member and help me out, the cheapest option is only $1 a month, and you'll get a personal thank you from me in a future video. All right, all the ad stuff out of the way. So as I was mentioned before, as I was seeing an increase of this dead game talk in the comment section of videos, I decided to do a little bit of digging. And honestly, I really wish I could grab the player count and player information in time from like the Xbox and PSN side of the thing, but unfortunately those numbers are not easily accessible and not available to grab, so I only really could grab the information from the Steam side of Armored Core 6. Now, go to SteamDB, I pulled this information up. If you look at the month of October, Armored Core 6 hit a peak of concurrent players around 4,645 players. That's concurrent players, people all playing at the exact same time. Now on paper, that may not seem great. However, if you look at the total track number of games in that month, there was 3,633 games. It placed it at the 354th spot from all those games being played. Then actually was Armored Core 6 at, my calculator here, sorry. In the top 10% of all concurrent player games on Steam. All of them. It's in the top 10%. Something I don't think many people realize. It's actually, from the Steam game side of things, as far as player base goes, it actually is pretty high end on that number. And I know, and don't forget, that also doesn't include any of the console numbers for the console players playing Armored Core 6. So it actually could even be higher than that. Now, I know what some of you may be thinking. The new patch just dropped in October. That doesn't count. Look at last month. Okay, fine. Sure. Let's look at September. So here's September's concurrent player numbers. And yeah, that is lower. It's at 2,678. It's about 2,000 less. And some might be like, yeah, sure. See, it's dead, right? But again, if you take the placements in September, it's at the 506th place of 3,511 entries. Meaning if I do this again, when I do the calculation where I divide the number out, that still puts it in the top 15% of the concurrent player base on Steam, which is, by the way, once again, not including all the console players, which some of the Steam games that are above Armored Core don't have console releases, meaning more than likely Armored Core is probably going to be much higher on this list. Now, while some may see this as a dead game, I don't see it as a dead game. I also don't necessarily see it as an alive game and thriving game. I really don't see it as either. I see it for what it is. It is a single player game with a multiplayer component. Yes, PvP has always been a part of the Armored Core series, but they have always fundamentally been a single player experience. Well, except 5th gen, but that was very much an outlier, and the rest weren't really like that at all. If you look at From's other titles, they too were single player focused games with a multiplayer component. Now, there is an argument to be made that Armored Core features the multiplayer more heavily than the other series or franchises in From's repertoire. But still, that doesn't change the fact that, especially when it comes to Armored Core 6, what they said about that game specifically in this current era. I myself interviewed the game's director, Masaru Yamamura. I'm so sorry. Masaru Yamamura at the July preview event. I interviewed him myself, and he gave me the exact same answer that he gave in multiple interviews to multiple other game news outlets. This is what he said, quote, "In Armored Core 6, the main thing we wanted to concentrate on was the single player campaign. That's the main meat of the content. We do have an online versus mode available. This is more of a place where players can bring their armored cores that they've customized, designed themselves, into battle one another. It's a simple, straight, no bells and whistles online versus mode for the real hardcore fans. So, yeah, Armored Core 6 has a multiplayer component, but it is not their focus. And actually, if I'm being honest, they've actually paid more attention to the part balance when it comes to PvP than I actually expected for this game. They were talking about the single player being such a big deal and the multiplayer being such an afterthought that we're still getting balance patches 14 months later, something I didn't think we were going to be getting for this game. Now, granted, I get it. You want more parts, you want more maps to play on, you want more options, you want even better balance. Look, I get it. Who doesn't want those things? I would love to have all of those things, but I think people are kind of missing the proper perspective on this game. Armored Core is not a season-driven battle pass game like Call of Duty. It is not an MMORPG like Final Fantasy XIV with getting constant new dungeons and challenges and gears and things. It's its own contained gaming experience. I think if players really need to kind of start managing their expectations when it comes to the game. Maybe that's just my 25 years, or so of enjoying this game franchise talking, but I never expected the kind of update experience to be more mainstream, or what you see in current mainstream games with the constant sequels and the multi-DLCs and all this crazy is happening. The games have always generally been their kind of an own contained entity as far as Armored Core games goes. I never expected to be like one of the mainstream mainline games you see, like with pushing constant patch and content updates. I never expected this game to be one of those things. And honestly, I don't think it's fair to expect it to be either, because it's not really From Software's MO. That's not how they do things. No, but granted, even with all that being said, that's not me giving From Software a pass. I still wish there were some other items balanced out in this game. I talked about that in my last video, going over patch 1.07.2. I still believe there's improvements to be made to the part balance, to somehow some of the mechanics, some of the physics, and some of the gameplay design choices. I still think there's ways to improve on the game. Now, just because there's ways to improve doesn't mean I expected in the current life cycle and time cycle of games, from releases to DLC to major updates, where we're not going to get something eventually. I think we're going to get something probably next year, I would guess. At least, if not an announcement, not the game itself, at least an announcement of some kind of update coming to the game. I'm guessing Armored Core 6 is going to get either a major DLC patch like a la Shadow of the Erdtree for Elden Ring, or it might be like a 6.5 kind of thing with a rework, kind of like previous Armored Core games like 5 to Verdict Day or 4 to Forancer on those lines. What will happen? Don't know. I'm guessing we're going to get something though. Now, just because we're going to have to wait for any major changes for that to happen, it doesn't mean that the game is dead. A game is only as dead as its fan base lets it be. The tourney scene in Armored Core 6 is still pretty consistent and pretty lively here in the US and especially in Japan. If you haven't already, I would encourage you to go look up some of these tournaments that have been regularly holding these things, and you will see all kinds of builds that you don't normally see in ranked. And some of these people are taking these builds against builds you will see commonly in ranked and just wrecking house against these top meta things you see in ranked and doing pretty well with them. So yeah, you should look some of these tourney VODs up. They're very interesting to see the variety of builds they have there. And going back to what I said a second ago, the game is only as dead as the base makes it or allows it to be. And right now, I still see plenty of Armored Core 6 going on. And especially even more than the older generation of the AC games were being played online prior to AC6's release. The most recent sale of the game, even when it was the biggest discount it's ever gotten, brought in a fairly decent new players, where I've actually seen in my metrics on YouTube, where I've actually seen there's been a whole lot of new viewers I haven't had before. So personally, I think the future of this game, and especially the series of Armored Core as a whole, I think it's still pretty bright. I think there's still a lot of room and a lot of places it can grow, and I think it has a chance to grow, and I think it will grow. I think there's a lot of places it can do. I think the peak is nowhere near being reached at this point, and I think we're going to keep marching our way towards that peak. By the way, I am not unwilling to listen to other perspectives, all right? So here is your chance to be heard. I'm working on the next Ravens Roundtable podcast episode, and I would like your input. In fact, I greatly appreciate it. So I'm going to give you your chance to get your point and get your voice heard here and now. So go into the comment section of this video and let me know if you think the game is dead or not. Do you think it's dead? Why do you think it's dead? Do you think it's not dead? Why do you think it's not dead? Lay it all out for everyone to see. And I might pick your comment to get covered during the podcast discussion, because this is the very topic I'm going to be talking about in the Ravens Roundtable, is Armored Core 6 dead. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you all say, what your ideas are, what your thoughts are. I think we have a pretty awesome community as a whole, so I'm looking forward to hearing your perspective. I'm not against hearing opposing listened to the very first Ravens Roundtable, I had some people who had different views than me. I have no problem listening to dissenting views. I don't want an echo chamber. I like a wide variety of viewpoints. I think it makes for a much more interesting discussion. So also linked in the description below is going to be a link to a poll if you think the game is dead or not. And that's for those of you who don't want to necessarily make your, lay out all your articulate or your reasoning for why you think it's dead or not. You just want to do a simple vote. That's linked in the description below too. You can just go vote in it. All right. So that's my quick one and done dirty take. This is my first take on it. I'm not going to do another one, even with the flub I did with the member's name, which I feel bad about, but you know what? I'm human. I make mistakes. So thank you all again for your time. I realize your time is extremely valuable, and I greatly appreciate you spending some of that time watching and listening to me. I'm not sure why, but you know what? We are in the way we live today. It's the world we live in, but I think it's kind of awesome that we can talk about Armored Core and nerd out about it. It's one of my favorite things to do. Without further ado, that's the video. This is Cleric, signing off.